This is Get Sellers Calling You, and I'm Beatty Carmichael. Learn more at our website at getsellerscallingyou.com. Okay, so welcome everyone. This is Beatty Carmichael again, back with Get Sellers Calling You podcast. And I'm excited today to visit with Derek Ty from, I want to call him from near WKRP in Cincinnati, but near Cincinnati, Ohio. Derek is a real top producer in real estate. I think we were just talking, he did like 101 transactions last year. But there's an impeccable character about Derek that I was really excited when I was talking with him. We've worked together in the past years back. And he has a website. I just want to kind of push it out real quickly. And then we'll talk about this as we go along, but it's called, I believe I'm correct, Derek, it's kingdomrealestateagents.com.
Correct, that's it.
Yeah, so kingdomrealestateagents.com. And for those of you who know me and know my passion for Christ and to really talk and teach about him as well, you can kind of get an idea of how this conversation might start going with that website, kingdomrealestateagents.com. So Derek, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Well, I'm excited to have you here and to learn a lot of great things on business and business as it relates to following the Lord. Just a real quick reminder for everyone, this is an internet-based call, so please pardon any type of internet-type interruptions if these do occur. But in just getting started, Derek, tell us a little bit about yourself and your real estate career.
So I started back in 2004. So I've seen a couple cycles of the real estate market now. I started as a part-time agent. I was working as a commercial loan officer actually at the time for a major bank, Fortune 100 bank. And I was sitting across the table once with a real estate agent who, we were doing a $1 million transaction. I was the loan officer. And we put $1 million deal together. I got a $350 bonus that day. This guy walks away with a check for $30,000. And that's about what my annual salary was at the time. And I thought, you know what, I'm sitting on the wrong side of the table here. So I went and got my real estate license. Long story later, we've sold about 1,400 homes now on our team, and just having a lot of fun. We've been working kind of the east side of Cincinnati. We've got some neighborhoods and areas that we kind of like to do business in and work in. But overall, we've had our average sale price keeps going up every year. The number of client touches we're doing is going up every year. Our relationships are going deeper. The people that we've been able to influence has broadened here in Cincinnati. And the life has led me to a beautiful family of 5 children. And I have a beautiful wife that I love very much, that I still do a date night with her almost every single week and take her out of town 4 times a year, just the 2 of us. So real estate's enabled me to have a really cool career. I own multiple rental properties, which we can talk about that. And I've been able to write 2 books. So I've had a lot of fun and enjoy the real estate business a lot.
So I want to ask, what do you do with all your free time? But I'm not sure how much free time you actually have.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. God, honestly, I always say that God provides an exponential return on my time investment. So, I pray every day that that God blesses our efforts and abilities and time. And there's a book by Dan McCallum called Time Bending. If you've never seen Dan before, he's a great leader, speaker, teacher, coach, pastor, musician. But he does more than about anybody I've ever seen. And he wrote, I think, 20 books already. And I think he's in his 50s. But he's basically one of the guys I get inspired by, that he always finds time for everything important in his life. And surprisingly enough, I actually, like twiddling my thumbs last night, like, what can I do with my time? It's like God just kind of makes my time count. When I'm on, and when I'm off, I'm off,
I love it. Well, for those who are not watching the video portion of this, I'm looking in Derek's background on his video feed, and I see all kinds of charts and graphs and everything else. Give me just a little quick background on what's behind you.
Yeah, so I'm in a real estate office. We have about 110 agents here, and I'm one of the investors of the franchise of a Keller Williams office. And people do what they call the power walk. And when a new agent's considering joining our office, they walk them around the circle, and they get to meet all the agents that have permanent offices like I do. And I try to stop people and just say, "Hey, I want you to see what it's like to work here." And I show them my wall back here, and I call it my inspiration wall. And these are handwritten notes I've received, little testimonials. I've got like a chart on here of like if I'm going through a specific issue in my life, like I'm not enough or I don't have enough money. It says, here's what the world would say about that. Here's what God says about that. Little reminders on my wall to stay encouraged. I got a little note from my daughter saying I'm the best dad ever. Notes from my wife saying I'm the best husband ever. Just, and I get kind of teary, but and I have a stand-up desk back there, so when I'm doing some prospecting, either I can sit down here at my computer and type away, or I can go stand up there. I do my affirmations every morning. I read out loud my prayers and affirmations, and that's the one wall that you can see. The other wall over here on to your right, maybe to my left,
Mhm.
is actually my 411, which is basically kind of your priorities on a yearly basis, monthly basis, and then a weekly basis. And I've broken those down on my wall behind me to my goals annually for my personal life, for my relationships, for my rental property business, for my Thai group team that we're running, and for the books that I'm writing and speaking and coaching on. So I've got these different categories in my life, and I've broken it down. So every morning I review that. So that's, you're literally seeing what I'm seeing every day. And it's a dry erase board, so I can, erase and replace and kind of keep myself in a real focused manner every day.
That's just really amazing. As you're talking, the only thing that really keeps going through my mind is the reason for Derek's success. I mean, you've got it laid out, you're driving it, you know what you're doing, and that's really cool. I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And that's what I try to do is inspire other people. I'm just like, listen, there's nothing special about me being like an amazing professional. I'm just following a plan. One of the things you may be able to see back in here is the original Disney map. So Disney did a mind map back in like 1950s, Walt Disney. And he said, I'm going to do productions and studios and comic books and music and TV and radio and Disney on Ice and an amusement park. And people are like, you're crazy, man. You're just drawing cartoons. That was his vision. So if you look at his organization today, he's been dead for 30 years. It is insanely similar to what he forecasted. He was way ahead of his time, like 60, 70 years ago. He put that map together. So I actually put my own Disney map together years ago. And I said, okay, what would my life look like in 10 years, 15 years? And so I put my real estate business at the center. And I said, okay, I can churn some cash, a cash cow is real estate. People need to realize that it's just one mechanism to earn money. But then what am I going to do with that money? Well, I can buy rental properties. So I literally outlined, okay, I want 5 rental properties. And then I put on another side, I want to write a book. So I put that on there. And then I want to start a coaching business, started that on there. So basically I built this vision 5 years ago. And then over the last 5 years, every year I draw a new map and I make it bigger because I want to think even bigger each year. Like, okay, God, I accomplished that. Now what's next? And so when I walk people into my office, if they're thinking about being part of our organization, I'm like, look at all the growth that's going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years. Would you like to be a part of that? And people are like, oh my gosh, they want to see someone with a big vision ahead of them, not just some guy that's in here selling a few houses a year. I want them to see that there's people thinking much bigger than that. And then they can go and recreate their own Disney map in their own world, what's important to them, because we've all been given a unique vision from God. And so we have to do something about it. We can't just think, oh, that would be great someday if I did this thing. It's like, put it in writing, put it on your wall, look at it every day, show it to other people, stay accountable, get other people to rally around you. And the number one question an entrepreneur should ask that they don't ask, when most people have a big vision or dream or a life goal, the first question an entrepreneur normally asks is, how am I going to do this? Or what am I going to do to get there? Or some question about that. The correct question is, who do I need to be talking to that can help me get this done?
Hmm.
Who should I hire to bring into my life to do this? Who can I delegate something to get me one step closer to that? It's always a who question, not a how question.
This is really fascinating. I'm real tempted, and I'm about to pull out of the conversation for just a moment and say, Derek, just take it away. We've got a lot of realtors on the online that are listening to this who want to grow their business. Many of them want to grow and honor the Lord. Many just want to grow, and it looks like that you've got a plan of what you're doing. You're following your plan and you're growing with it. So I'd like to ask you, so put yourself in the mindset of the typical real estate agent out there and just start going to town with us and tell us what are the key things that you've learned in your business besides what you're telling, maybe even go a little bit deeper, but what are the key things to grow a business, to be consistent, and then to have balance in your life, and help start dissecting that for us,
Yeah,
would you?
so I think that there's a myth out there that the successful, quote unquote, whatever you want to consider successful. Let's say that realtors make $100,000 a year or more. Most people would consider them the successful group, right? The myth is they have to work 80 hours a week. They have to sell their soul. They got to buy Zillow leads constantly. There's kind of these kind of predispositions on those people, or they have to inherited a business from mom or dad. There's all these kind of like, oh, if they got successful, they had to do one of these things. Well, back the first year I started in real estate, I realized, man, this is a really time intensive business. It can eat you up 80 hours a week. You could be evenings, weekends, holidays, missing all the games, missing all the stuff with my kids. And so I set pretty much a standard about a year into the business after I kind of started learning how the business really worked and leaving my full-time job, starting full-time into real estate as an entrepreneur. I had to put certain time boundaries out there. So just like you put a boundary in your marriage and your faith and all these kind of boundaries you have to set in your life, I had to set some time boundaries. So my goal was I came from the banking industry, and before that, corporate America, you work 9 to 5, right? It was 8 to 5, 9 to 5. And I said, well, why can't I do this with real estate? Well, everyone told me that's impossible. You'll never be successful, quote unquote, if you do that. And I said, well, first of all, I'm going to define what I think is successful, not what the world thinks successful. But secondly, the reasons why most people cannot keep a schedule that's regular is they haven't learned a few levers, right? So ironically, I just wrote a book, just finished it, called The 7 Levers of Real Estate. And that book should be out by the time this podcast goes live. But if you don't mind, I can kind of actually step you through some very
Please,
specific
yes.
levers that I think real estate agents need. So the first one is leverage of people. So we talked about that earlier, the who question. So you need, as soon as you start doing some real estate transactions in your life, you really need to, once you get to maybe 20 to 30 a year, which if you're doing this full time and you're working your database and you're working the calls and you're actually actively working productively 40 hours a week, you're going to get to the point where you're going to kind of peak out or cap out at about 25, 35 deals a year, depending on your market. And you're going to hit this like ceiling of achievement. And I don't care how hard you work, how much you want to grow, how much you want to spend on leads, you're going to hit this. And there's probably exceptions to this. There's people out there going, well, I've sold 50 or whatever. I've been doing this 16 years. I'm talking about consistent. Whatever I say in here is going to be about consistency, something you can replicate month after month, year after year. And like you just said, have a balance. So my parameter I set is I wanted to work approximately 8 o'clock in the morning till approximately 5 o'clock, 5 days a week. So the only way to do that was all the buyers that wanted to go out and show homes they wanted to see homes usually had the opposite schedule, right? It's people that
Mhm.
work the 8 to 5 jobs. And then when they get off work, guess what they want to do? Go see houses. Well, guess what I like to do between 5 and 9 p.m.? See my wife,
Go home,
dinner with
right.
my family, go to the soccer games, be a coach on the basketball team, go to a Wednesday night service at church. You can't do that or volunteer for VBS. You can't do those things in the evenings and weekends if you have buyers that are constantly want you to see property. So I had to make a decision. Either A, I get out of the real estate business, which wasn't an option. I wanted to do this. It was an option. I just choose not to do that option. Or B, I start learning to work with there's two things that happen. One is I learned to work with sellers instead of buyers because sellers are much more they're less time demanding, especially evenings and weekends. You might have one meeting with a seller at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday just to get the listing signed. But in general, most of the work you're going to be doing for that seller is going to be during your 8 to 5 job, right? The second thing I learned to do is all the buyer leads I was generating because I was lead generating, which is a big thing you have to do in real estate, right? is I found other people in my office to basically sell the leads to. I'd say, hey, would you split this with me? I came up with the lead. This guy wants to go see a house tomorrow at 4 o'clock. It's a $300,000 home down the street. Would you show it to him? And they're raising their hand. Yes, yes. So I found agents in my office that became my team. Being in 2004, there weren't a lot of teams out there, right? So we kind of formed this unofficial team. And then when this Keller Williams office came into town, they kind of specialized in the team concept back in 2005, 2006. In Cincinnati, it was a brand new idea that, oh my gosh, you could have a team and be part of a brokerage. So make a long story short, I learned the listing leverage of getting listings so that I could work the kind of business I wanted. And I learned the people leverage by selling the leads so that the buyer's agents, who in their case, they didn't care to work 5 to 9 and on the evenings and weekends. So we had a partnership. So the first big lever again is people. You got to like partner up with people, both in the administrative side and then potentially as a buyer's agent to get your time leverage back.
I love this. You know, I remember, I forget who said it, but if you have a lever and a fulcrum, you can lift the world. And I
Yes.
love this whole concept of levers because it really is. And, you know, what I'm getting out of this is several things, because I think if you look at everyone who's been successful in real estate or business or anything else, it's always they have a clear vision of where they want to go. They put at the boundaries that says, I'm not going to go outside of these boundaries. So I have to fit it within these parameters. And then they go at it with a tenacity. And what I'm hearing from you is I love the boundaries that you put in. I don't know if you know a friend of mine named Stuart Sutton. He's a agent down in Texas, but similar to you, but different. When I met him, he was doing 120 transactions a year. But he'd set up these boundaries. So he worked an average of 35 hours a week. It was Monday through Friday. Monday through Thursday. Rarely worked evenings. He never worked weekends. And he chose, if I'm going to be in business, these are the hours I'm going to do it, just like you. And I love that.
Well, and I think too, and I like to read the old Hebrew kind of wisdom and knowledge as well. Not so I am a Christian, but I also like to learn a lot about ancient Hebrew, both the spoken and the written traditions. And there's an author I love. His name is Daniel Lapin, and he wrote 2 books that I know. He may have written many more, but 2 that I've written that have been excellent references to me. And one of them is called "Thou Shalt Prosper," and
Hmm.
another one is called Business Secrets from the Bible. And in the book, he talks about the ancient Jewish traditions about work. And there's all kinds of, things that we do in the Western world that don't line up. And we think, well, we got it all figured out over here in the West. And when you go back to these principles that are 5,000 years old, 6,000 years old, you scratch your head. You're like, oh my gosh, that works. And it's really old. And these guys had figured it out a long time ago. I mean, Sabbath is one of them, right? So he talks about how his dad growing up, this guy rushes into the synagogue and says, hey, Mr. Lapin, we've got this great business deal, but you have to make a decision today or else this mega $1 million opportunity is going to go away. And his dad said, you know what? I don't do business on the Sabbath. This is my time of rest, and God will reward that. And this guy said, listen, I'm telling you right now, this is a real legit opportunity. It's a real legit deadline, and it's going to happen right now. And if you don't do it before sunset, the deal's gone. And he said, I guess I'm just going to have to let it go then. So it
Wow.
turns out that this deal goes south and all the investors lose all this money. And this guy basically comes back to his dad and he's like, hey, I guess, God protected you. He goes, that's what happens, right? So he set these time parameters and said, this is something I'm not going to do. He also talks about working 6 days a week versus 7 days a week. So in the Western tradition, we do think about weekends as this holy ground where, okay, the ideal would be I only work 5 days a week and then 2 days are off. And this book challenged me because I thought, well, yeah, that's the way I think this should go. I should only work 5 days a week. But nowhere in the Bible does it say only work 5 days a week. It says to work 6 days a week. So then I said, okay, I'm onto something here. So what do I do on the 6th day? So if I'm supposed to be working my job 5 days a week and the 7th day is the Sabbath, then Beatty, let me ask you, what are you supposed to do on the 6th day? I'll give you my answer. I'm just curious what your perspective is.
Well, my perspective is that 6th day is a time to get out of town and have fun and enjoy some things. But But I can see, as you're talking, my wheels are turning because I actually teach about, 6 days, work 6 days and take the seventh off. The But the thing that hits me is all these other things that you do. That's probably where you apply the 6th day on that.
Yeah, so it's a great thing. So what I realized is I was actually working 6 days a week, but I was only working 5 days on my real estate sales team.
Hmm.
So this was a big aha is in the books I read, and I could be misinterpreting theology. I'm not a pastor or professor or anything, but my understanding after reading these two books and after I've read the Bible cover to cover, I don't know, 5 or 6 times. Uh, and it's not to brag about that, but that's just I'm trying to absorb it constantly, like,
Right.
and just reread it and reread it because something new comes to me every time I read it. But my understanding is that, we are supposed to work 6 days a week, and there is no retirement, by the way. That's a whole nother principle. But so the 6 days a week, so on that 6th day, I've got my rental properties. I've got my, projects around the house to help my wife with. I've got I like to do, we have a farm, right? So I live in the middle of a town, but I have like one of the last farms left in the town. So I'm surrounded by homes and apartments and all kinds of stuff. And we have this farm right in the middle of town. But I want to do work on my farm. I'm always doing some kind of project out there. And what it is to me is like, that's the day, that 6th day for me is I've learned to build my other businesses, write my books, do the other kinds of business building things that don't fit into the other parameters. So I do believe that we are meant to be active and working and hustling and doing whatever we got to do 6 days a week. But I do believe that we really should find, it doesn't have to be a Sunday, whatever your day is, but there should be a day of what the Jewish tradition says is you're not supposed to be working in a productive way toward a living or like some kind of like a profit. So
Right.
if Jesus even said that if your ox falls in a hole, you're going to pull it out. So it's not like you're forbidden to do any work. It's just you kind of have to think about what the purpose is of the work you're doing on that seventh day.
I'd love to talk on that because this is actually a passion of mine, and I've been recently doing some study on it. So the Sabbath, okay, so here's kind of the background with that, Derek, as you know. God created the world, the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and he rested on the seventh. So God says the seventh day is holy. Holy means to be set apart for the Lord. And that's how the Jewish tradition, which is actually a directive from the Lord, is you treat my holy day as holy. And the in Sabbath, the Hebrew word for Sabbath actually means a full rest, and it's just what you're talking about. It's ceasing rest, ceasing work, and resting from your basically your occupational stuff, anything that you have to do. Okay, and over where we are in the West, people a lot of times use the weekend as catch up, and Sunday's a good day to catch up on all kinds of stuff. So they catch up on shopping, catch up on yard work and doing housework and things. But what the Lord really says is, honor me first. And I have declared the seventh day to be holy. So treat it as holy. Don't treat it as common.
Hmm.
And it's really special, really unique. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to, just believers, who will honor the Sabbath and as part of their normal life in serving and honoring the Lord. And the Lord just seems to constantly bless everything they do. It doesn't mean that life is without challenges,
Sure.
but life is blessed. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. And I love that perspective. So it's always, and this is something I want to always be coachable, teachable. I want to be like soft clay where, if someone gives me something and it's from God, I want to be able to chip that off or, move it or, I want to constantly be in a learning state. So I appreciate your perspective on that. And that'll go into my future theology of how I process my day on Sunday.
Well, I love that. I want to make a comment because this came up, okay, as you were talking about the Jewish man who was offered this great big deal, but he had to
Mhm.
make a decision on the Sabbath. Do you know? So back, if we go back to Old Testament times, by the way, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So what He considered holy back in the Old Testament times, He considers holy today. Okay,
Mhm.
holiness doesn't change. And when He was teaching people about the Sabbath, here's what He would say. He said, the Sabbath is holy to me, and whether it's planting time or harvest time, you need to keep the Sabbath holy. And here's how it relates kind of into our Western world thinking. Planting time, because they're an agrarian society, there's only a short window of time that you can actually plant and get things going so that you can have a harvest. And God is saying during that very short period of time, the most important thing is to honor me first. And harvest time is the same thing. There's only a short window where you can harvest that. If you're not careful, the rains come and everything rots. And he said, even during harvest time, honor me first. And when you honor him first, in those most important times where you feel I've got to give more time, I really need to, work even harder. God says, honor me, and if you honor me, I can take care of you.
I agree with that. And I mean, as those of us that are real estate agents out there, I kind of feel like the planting the seed time is, when we're doing prospecting, lead generation, open houses, those kinds of things. And then the harvest is going to be when someone calls and says, I want to see a house right now.
Yes.
I need you to write an offer. So in both of those perspectives, I mean, I've got a friend here in our office that's, a devout Jewish, traditional Jew, and he is very honors the Sabbath, and his is Friday night sunset to Saturday night at sunset. But he's had opportunities that he's had to say no to, that people say, hey, I got to see a house tomorrow at 3, I need you to show it to him. And he says, I will be available at like 7 p.m. on Saturday, or he gives them like options that are not within that window. And he said that God always works out the deals. They always seem to just work out in this way. So I feel like it's a good confirmation of what you were just saying.
You're listening to the Get Sellers Calling You podcast. To increase sales from past clients and sphere of influence or from a geographic farm, learn about Agent Dominator. We guarantee your sales in writing or give your money back. To learn more, visit our website at getsellerscallingyou.com and select Agent Dominator from the menu. And now, back to the podcast. I just did actually it just came out on podcast. I did a little while back with a agent in Arizona, and his name is Peter Fife. And so he takes the Sabbath Sunday. So Sunday is the Christian Sabbath. He takes that off, and he will not work. And he's coaching one of the agents in the office, and she couldn't understand how he could afford to do that. He said, well, if I'm working with someone and they don't respect me enough to respect my parameters, I will not work on Sunday. He said, I don't want them as a client. And after she would take clients who would force her to work on the times that she didn't want to, she started realizing, his way is better because you get really good clients. But what he's done, kind of sort of like what you mentioned, but maybe a little bit more formal, is there's another man there in the office that doesn't work Saturdays. And Peter doesn't work Sundays. So they just have this ongoing partnership. Anything that needs to be seen, shown, or handled on a Saturday, Peter handles for him, and he handles everything on the Sunday. So they get to work in partnership that way.
I think that's awesome. And actually, there's so there's a lot of real estate agents out there that might be going, Derek, give me something practical that I can use right now. Well, here's something practical. It's all about scripts, right? So number one, you got to be an amazing, excellent real estate agent who provides tremendous value those other 6 days, or you're never going to earn the right to take off that 7th day, because someone's going to go, Derek, I need you. Well, if you're providing amazing value to that person, they're going to be willing to wait. They're going to be willing to readjust. So I'll give you an example. So I'm very fortunate in my career. I'm getting all these repeat clients. I got one literally buzzing my phone right this second that wants to get a hold of me, but I'm going to set aside that right now, right? But what happens is I'm getting these repeat clients now, and if they say to me, Derek, my mom needs to sell her house, like this text I got right before we jumped on this call together, and she needs you to come out and take a look at it. So I'm saying, okay, here are my times I'm available, and I set the times that I'm available to them. I say Tuesday at 2, Wednesday at 3, Thursday at 4, or Friday at 9 a.m. And they go, sorry, we need to meet you at 7 p.m. on Friday. Well, I've got plans with my family at 7 p.m. on Friday. So this becomes a scripting exercise. And if those of you guys are not using scripts, I would highly recommend you get with Beatty or whoever you recommend for learning scripts. But scripts are really important. A script is just basically kind of like a something that you can just pop off the top of your head that you've already memorized in the past. So what I would say is, it sounds like to me that you want a time that I'm not available to work. So I have a couple different options for you. Number one, maybe you could, take off a lunch break or come in early or stay late from your job. Is that an option? No. Okay. So it sounds like we might be an option two. I have an associate in my office that'd be more than happy to meet you at 7 p.m. on Friday. I would still be involved with the transaction, but I personally cannot be involved at that specific time. Will that work for you? No, we want to work with you. Then option three is, I guess we're going to have to reschedule for a future week. Tell me when you can fit within 9 to 5, Monday through Friday next week. So I'm never telling them no.
I
I'm
love
telling them, here's your options. And the options are always, if you want to work with me, which I've earned the right at that point to say that. Let me give you an example too. If you got sued or something happened in your life and you wanted the top attorney in town to work on your case, you call up that attorney's office. First of all, you're not talking to the attorney, you're talking to some assistant, right? And they're going to say, Mr. Johnson is available Thursday at 3. What are you going to do? You're going to drop everything you got to do in your life and you're going to go meet Mr. Johnson at 3 o'clock, right? That's just what you
absolutely.
do. So you need to make yourself in that same value proposition where you are the agent they have to meet with. And I'm not like being like a bully here, but the truth is that I have time parameters for real that I want to set in my life. I'm not going to meet with someone on Sunday afternoon to go talk about listing their house. It's not going to happen. So, and that conviction I have is, if that's not going to work for you, I totally understand. I have another agent in my office that can do that, but it will not be me personally. Same thing goes with a doctor. If you just got diagnosed with some horrible disease and the specialist is available 3 weeks from now on a Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., guess what you're going to be doing? You're going to be meeting at Tuesday a.m. and three weeks from now.
Yeah.
So and as a real estate agents, we've become so accommodating. I'll meet you wherever, whenever. We call those Pop-Tart agents in our market. They just pop out, boom, boom, boom. Like someone says, I need to see me in an hour and go see a house. Pop, pop, pop. They just pop. There's no qualification. There's no, I've worked with you before. I haven't. You're pre-qualified to buy a home. They just pop out. It's like a Pop-Tart coming out of a toaster. So my point is you got to have massive value. And if you're a newer agent and you're like, well, get on a team or be part of a company where there is massive value there, and be part of a system that you're a piece of the system that is valuable and that is worthy to be having on a schedule. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You're talking about boundaries, and as you're talking, the thing that also hits me, and because I go back to Peter's comment in my interview with him, his philosophy is the Lord is the one who handles my business. So I don't have to violate these boundaries because he's going to provide it. And I think when you're confident enough with what you do, years back when the scripting, we would call them posture. I will posture you. These are my boundaries and you're going to fit it within those boundaries. To have the guts, the confidence, the self-esteem to hold, set your boundaries and hold to them, what I found is people really respect it. And without, we haven't talked on this with you, but I would imagine that after going through that scripting, I'm imagining, and tell me if I'm wrong, that these prospects of yours really respect you even more. Do they?
Well, that's the thing is I'm showing them my negotiation skills now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want everyone to think about this on the call. So you're basically auditioning for a job. So if you're a pushover at the beginning and you do whatever somebody wants, they're going to go subconsciously, this guy is weak, right? So if they want you to represent the most valuable transaction in their probably life in a 5-year period of time, do they want a weak agent or do they want a strong agent? Do they want a bulldog in there that's going to fight for them and grab onto something and not let it go? Or are they going to want some wishy-washy person that's desperate because they need to make their mortgage at the end of the month and they're afraid if they don't get this sale, it's not going to happen? And I literally, I'll say that to a client. Be like, what kind of agent do you really want? If this is, and honestly, I don't fight for every deal either. So if I get a vibe from somebody that they don't respect me, that they don't think I'm valuable, that they're one of the first questions they ask is, well, how much do you charge or something like that? You know what? I don't think this has gone exactly the way I want it to go at this point. It sounds like the most important thing to you is saving money, and that is not what my specialty is. My specialty is providing massive value for people. And what I've learned in my experience is there's reasons why people drive a Mercedes. There's reasons why people drive a Lexus. There's reasons why people shop at a nicer store or they go to a nice restaurant when they go out to dinner because they want the experience, they want the value, they want the quality. And if you're the kind of person that just wants to go to McDonald's every day and have dinner and you are trying to save money in everything you do and you drive an old beat up car every day, no judgment against you. That's totally fine. But that's not the kind of real estate agent that I am. So you just need to make a decision what kind of real estate agent you want, and then we can decide if we should do business together.
Wow, I love that. What other, so give me some other scripting, because this is super. And for the folks listening to this, I hope you're kind of transcribing these scripts and starting to internalize them, because I love it.
Well, I mean, commission's always a big one, right? So that's
Okay.
one is, hey, I know this guy, he'll do a, 1%, listing contract. I'm like, that's great. So let me ask you, what's the most important thing to you? Is it to net the most amount of money?
Yes.
Did you say yes?
Yes.
Yeah, you want to net the most amount of money. Excellent. Well, what if I could show you that given us representing you over the last 16 years that we've been doing this, we traditionally net sellers at least $10,000 more than our competitors. Would that be of interest to you?
Oh, absolutely. But how can you show
Excellent.
me that? How can you prove it?
So that's a great question. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you the average sale price of the market. Here's what the average agent gets the average seller in the market. And here's what our team can do on an average sale price. We're traditionally at X amount percent higher. So in that way, the extra 1 or 2% commission that we're talking about actually translates to about $6,000. So here's what you're going to get. You're going to get top quality representation from me, and potentially you're going to net more money than the average agent. In your opinion, doesn't that seem like a great value?
Oh, I love that.
I
But
mean, that's
that's
it.
the,
It's a lot of questions. I
yeah,
just ask questions. I don't sit there and preach for half an hour. I ask questions.
that is a brilliant. So you're looking at the sell to list price ratio, and for those who may not have caught that, I never thought about using that against the discount brokerage, but that was beautiful.
Oh
What
yeah, I
other
mean,
scripts?
yeah. So and then the same thing goes too. As I say, yeah, the average sale price in Cincinnati last year was 235,000. My average sale price was $260,000. So you could either list with an average agent in Cincinnati, or you could list with me. What's your choice?
That
I
is really
mean,
great.
and again, question. I'm just asking
Question.
questions. So someone might say, let's say I'm trying to think of another objection, because that's the biggest thing is where, oh, I'm going to list with my sister. She just got a real estate license. So that's great. So how many sales has your sister done? Oh, well, she just got her license, so none. Okay, so I'm just curious. If you were just diagnosed with a major, illness, would you go to the doctor that just got their, degree and hasn't operated on anybody, or would you go to the best surgeon in town?
I'd go to the best surgeon.
So this is kind of like financial surgery is the most valuable transaction you're probably going to deal with in the next 5 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, probably so. I mean, it's our house. It's the
Yeah.
most expensive thing we have right now.
So let's do the right thing. Let's list your home with a professional that really knows how to take care of you, that's got proven results. How does that sound?
Where do I sign?
There you go. It's confidence, right?
It
And
is.
you're not going to win all these, but what I have found over time is the more and more I do the scripts and the more they become natural, I'm not reading them verbatim the way they came off of where I learned them. I mean, I've learned scripts from different programs and tools over the years, but you got to internalize them. That's the key. You got to make them just part. And if you want to become a top agent, there's a lot of real estate coaches out there, and it tells you that you need to spend 30 minutes a day doing script practice and role plays with someone else in your office. Then you jump on the phones and you do your prospecting for another 2 hours a day. And there's a lot of agents that tell me, I want to make $100,000 a year. And I say, okay, I'm going to give you one task to do for 2 weeks and see how you do that. And most agents will not even do that one task consistently 5 days a week. So the one is script practice, half hour a
Script
day.
tracks.
Then if they get past that, then there's 2 hours of lead gen. Most of them don't get past that. If they do that, then the third one is lead follow up, going on appointments, and negotiating contracts. Those are the 5 key activities that every real estate agent should be doing every day. Those of you guys who are Stephen Covey fans, he talks about the 4 quadrants, and you got your 80% of your time spent should be in the top right-hand quadrant, which is the relationship building, the planning, and kind of the building of your business, not in escape or in the urgent tasks. Some of you guys have seen that, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So the key of those 5 key activities is you want to spend 80% of your work hours. So at the beginning of this call, I told everyone, I said, 40 hours a week is great, but if you're spending 40 hours a week on Facebook in your office, that's not work. Now, I'm lead generation. Okay, great. You're commenting on your sister's political posts from last night's blah, blah, blah. That's not exactly lead generation. It's focused lead generation. So if I've had agents come into my office and say, Derek, I don't have any appointments to go on. So I'm like, okay, so that 2 hours a day lead gen, turn it into 8 hours a day lead gen. They're like, well, that's hard. Yeah. How much money do you want to make again this year? Honestly, this business is not for people that are lazy. And there's some, I've called myself a lazy agent before because I haven't left my office in a week sometimes, but I'm giving the leads that I've generated out to agents on my team, splitting them with them, and then we split the commission. So to me, that's just called delegation.
Right. I love it.
That's called leverage again. So we only got to one leverage thing in my 7, but I don't know how much time you got today, but.
Well, I want to make one comment. Then I want to talk about your books because
Yeah.
and how people can get them, because I think that's going to be really valuable. I was listening to a sales rep's talk, and this guy makes like multiple 7 figures. That's his take-home pay, and he was talking about that all the best sales reps are scripted. And this is what he's talking about. The answers people give you and the objections they give you are, as Solomon says, there's nothing new under the sun.
Correct.
You know what they're going to be. You
They're
need to
predictable.
practice what your response is going to be so you can win the deal.
That's right. I mean, honestly, so, and we always joke about this in my office, but have you ever heard of a doctor's practice? Well, that's what they call it, right? So, and actually doctors, a surgeon will practice on cadavers and do surgeries on cadavers 100 times before they ever operate on a live person. A lot of people don't know that, but that's where they get their practice, right? You don't want them cutting open you for the very first time and never have practiced before. Well, in real estate, it's the only business we practice on our clients. Because I can guarantee you 95% of the people listening to this call don't practice scripts. So what happens, they get that objection that calls in, and again, they're predictable. Like, that's why I can rattle them off the top of my head. I've heard them all 100 times. I'm going to do this. I'm going to use a discount realty firm. I want, you to lower commission. I want to, blah, blah, blah. I've heard all these things before. So I've practiced the answers, like you said, and I know there's one of 10 things they're going to say. And so I've practiced them with a practice partner. I've done what we call role plays, where I take a turn being the seller and I listen to what someone else says. I'm like, oh, I don't like the way that came out. We should tweak that a little bit. So listening to it and also saying it is both important too.
This actually makes it sound like you're a professional at what you do. So
Oh
your success is not just accidental. Is that right?
It's part of a plan. I mean, so actually a lot of people ask me about my daily routine because I am kind of structured, but I also have a lot of fun. So, I actually wake up in the morning, read my Bible. I do a Bible in a year plan. So I always like to get through that. And then I pray, and then I speak out loud my affirmations, and then I speak out loud my goals. And then I review my 411 on my board here, knowing what I got to do for the week and for the month. And then I do script practice and role plays, usually if my team's doing them. If they're not, then I don't do those, because after 16 years, I've kind of memorized a lot of them already at this point. But then I go into that 2 hours of lead gen from 9 to 11, lead follow-up from 11 to noon. I usually try to do lunch with somebody if possible from noon to 1. The rest of my afternoon should be going on appointments, negotiating contracts, anything I can't delegate to my office manager, because those 5 key activities is all I do. And then I try to leave the office by 5 o'clock every day, get home by 5:30 to 6, somewhere in that range, have dinner with my kids and my wife, and go home, spend a few hours with them, get to bed by 10, start the next day over again about 6 o'clock in the morning. And that's my day, almost 5 days a week, almost every day.
And there's no doubt in my mind why you are successful as you are. So that is really cool. Hey, tell me about your book. So you're an author of 2 books.
Yes.
And let's talk about those.
So let me finish the kind of outline of the first book, just in case anybody's interested. So the 7 levers, I'm just going to give them to you for free. You ready? So you got, if anyone's writing anything down, the first one is people. And the second one is systems and tools. And I go into a lot more detail in the book with stories and examples from top agents across the country. Number 3, third lever is time. So we talked a little bit about that today and how to leverage your time. Number 4 is listings as leverage. And that's, I know, something that you and I got connected years ago, because I came to the realization how important listings was in my business and how to create leverage, getting
Right.
more buyers off of those, and time leverage, and everything comes from listings. And so that's actually a huge focus of mine. Number 5 lever is affiliations. So that's whether you're affiliating with a team or with a company, national company, with a coaching system, with some kind of a chamber of commerce, with a networking group, BNI. Affiliations are huge in leverage and as a real estate agent. Number 6 is your database. And these could be in different order of importance. So to me,
Okay.
this is kind of what I've learned over time. How you treat your database, how often you touch your database, how to get someone into your database. Do you have a goal? Like, you should have at least one new person in your database every day. And people are like, well, that's impossible. Well, you're just not doing enough lead generation. You're not going on enough lunch appointments. You're not going to networking meetings. One person a day in your database in a few years will make a tremendous impact on your business if you work your database. So we talk about a 40 touch program that we use in our business here. How often we touch clients, client events, postcards, etc. And then last one is products. So this is where, as an agent grows in their business, you kind of step out of the day-to-day kitchen table conversations, is what I call them. I am rarely, for the number of sales we did last year, 101, I probably sat at 15 people's kitchen table out of 100 sales.
Wow.
So how is that possible? Well, one of the things you're going to do as you grow as in leverage in real estate is you're going to learn how to sell products. Products goes above and beyond just being a listing agent or a buyer's agent. Can you write a book? Can you start a coaching program? Can you buy rental properties that work for you? There's got to be some kind of system or technique or something that you can offer to someone else, teaching classes, all these things, e-courses, YouTube, Facebook channels. There's all kinds of ideas there, but that we go into those in a little bit more detail. And then there's some bonus levers that we talk about as well. But that's the first book. That's the 7 levers of real estate.
It would strike me, if I'm building a real estate business and you have kind of perfected the process of how to pull all these levers and have them work for you, I would be a fool not to buy the book. I mean,
Well, I appreciate that. For $15, I mean, you're getting, $9 million worth of GCI production for $15.
yep. So
I mean,
the book's name again is what?
it's called the 7 Levers of Real Estate.
7 Levers of Real Estate by Derek
Yeah.
Ty, and I'm
Yeah.
assuming probably Amazon.com if you want it.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's also on my website, derekty.com as well.
Okay, yeah. And
Yeah.
if you want to be impressed, go to derekty.com and just look at all the things this guy does.
Oh, that's fun. That's honestly, that was I met this guy locally, an entrepreneur, and he's like the Mark Cuban of the Cincinnati area. He's got like 25 businesses, and a lot of people are like, that's impossible. I mean, but he's got like 17 restaurants and 5 in a dog park and all these kinds of stuff, and he does them all well. Like they're all legit viable businesses. He's like 60 years old. And it inspired me, like, you know what? I'm going to create my own website like he did with my own name. And I'm going to start throwing all my businesses on there, the books I'm writing. And so I was surprised in 1 year that I had like 9 different businesses that are viable things on that page, between my wife's company and my company and our real estate business and our 5 different rental properties they're all short-term rentals. So they have like their own websites. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh my gosh, that was fun. Like, and seeing it come together is very inspiring.
That's really neat. Hey, before we run, because we got a few more minutes,
Yes.
you have another book about entrepreneurship. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so this one, for those of you that are on camera, this one is the Lord's Prayer for Entrepreneurs. So some of you guys have heard, faith is a huge part of my walk, and how I've done business over the years. And there's a really cool story that goes along with this book. But for about 3 years, I felt like God was telling me to write a book. And I had random people coming up to me in churches and stuff. I'm like, God's telling me to tell you to write a book. I'm like, yeah, I know. I was supposed to do that a long time ago. So after about 3 years of this and people laying hands on me and praying for me, like, are you supposed to write a book? I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do this. So I literally, like, originally the working title of the book was something different, but it was going to be for real estate agents and faith in real estate. And ironically, that book just came out from another author. So God gave the same idea to two people, and I never did anything with it, and this guy did. So good for them. But so I ended up writing this book called The Lord's Prayer for Entrepreneurs, because what happened was I had all these great faith and entrepreneurship ideas, and trying to blend faith and success and wealth building and wealth creation. And is it okay to be successful? Is it okay to be wealthy? Is it okay to have multiple businesses? And am I doing something wrong? And should I give it all back? And there's all these things. So I kept reading the Bible and praying and meeting with mentors. And I felt like, I was at the stuck point where I had written a lot of chapters, but it wasn't in a context where someone could just read the book. It was kind of more of like random thoughts.
Right.
So I go on this business conference with my wife, and I'm sitting on this balcony of a cruise ship. I mean, this is a really nice cruise ship, really nice balcony. We got a nice room. I'm living large, right? I'm feeling pretty good. And I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to write this book. Like, let's finish this thing. And I feel like God just like kind of settled me down and said, okay, if you want to write the book, pray the Lord's Prayer. I'm like, that's like the easiest prayer of all time. I'm like, give me something complicated, right? And so I kept praying the Lord's Prayer out loud. And then it was like it hit me like this inspirational moment, like, oh my gosh, all these chapters, all these things I've been thinking about, all these things I've been writing about fit in the context of different things that the Lord's Prayer has in it. Like the actual, like if you break down the Lord's Prayer into like little sections, the chapters in my book almost went perfectly with them. And so it inspired me. Okay, now I've got it. And the book just flowed out of me. Like,
We're still here and having some technical difficulty, it sounds like, with the internet. Just one moment. On my video feed with Derek, he just has paused. So we'll see what happens. There's a internet challenge somewhere. It might be his end or mine. Just one moment.
their faith. And yes. Okay. It says I'm back here. It looks like our
Okay, yeah,
internet went
now you're
out.
back.
Well, I was just saying, I feel very inspired because all these people that have read it have actually sent me notes for doing what you did and writing this book and being disciplined and actually getting it done.
Well, that is so cool. I'm looking forward. I want to get that book and read it myself. So it's called the tell me one more time. Let me write it down.
The Lord's Prayer for
Uh-huh.
Entrepreneurs. And
The
it's also in Amazon under my name.
Lord's Prayer for Entrepreneurs.
And it's also on my DerekTye.com website as well. So I've linked to the Amazon page.
Great.
So
Hey,
that one's a really fun. That was my first book, and I think I've got my first love there, right?
I love it. I love it. Hey, before we wrap up, I want two things real quick. Number one, I want to find out just a real point blank question. What does the Lord mean to you in terms of how the Lord impacts your business, in terms of your worldview of how you do your business? What's the impact of following the Lord with that?
Well, first of all, I feel like I'm a steward of the business. And so, I used to be like, I'm the owner of the Thai group. I'm the owner of this thing. And it's like, yeah, technically I do own it on paper, legally, LLC, but I also understand the power of stewardship. And so God gave me an idea. It's the breath that he gave me in my lungs. So it's his world, his building. I mean, it's like, so once you kind of get that gravity of the situation, okay, I am just here as a, I believe I'm a king. Like I'm like, chosen by God. He's given me my territory. I have a dominion here. I have authority here, but at the same time, everything's his. So he's given me a certain amount of resource to work with. I just want to be the best steward I can of those resources. So I guess my worldview is if the time I spend, like I used to worry all the time. I'm a kind of a worrier, I just want everything perfect. I want everything right. I'm an overachiever, right? I'm always like trying to get everything done. It's never good enough. No matter how much of anything, money, wealth, cars, whatever I have, is not enough. I want more and more and more. So I had to kind of years ago start settling down a little bit and saying, okay, God, let me be content, but also don't let me be satisfied. There's a difference. Like, I don't want to ever feel like, well, I'm good now. I've achieved a certain level of this or that. I'm just going to sit back and rest and retire, because bad things happened to a guy in the Bible that did that. So he said, now this day your very life will be demanded of you. So he had stored up money and treasures in barns and blah, blah, blah. So my thing is, I want to make sure that while I'm still on this earth, while I'm still alive, while I still have the opportunity to help influence other people, that I'm going to do that to the best of my abilities.
I love that. Very good. I love the quote. Let me be content, but let me not be satisfied. What a great way to say that. Last thing is, I'm assuming that if there are people out there who have referrals for transactions in Cincinnati, you would probably be okay to having them call you.
Yeah, that'd be great. In Cincinnati, Ohio, Derek Ty, just get a hold of us here. And we do a lot of corporate relocations into Cincinnati. We have 3 of top 100 employers here in Cincinnati. So we see a lot of people coming in and out, and we're happy to help you with any referrals. We pay a 25% referral fee. So, and same thing goes, buyers or sellers here.
Great. Just look you up online, or is there some special contact?
DerekTye.com leads you to all my websites, my team website, the books, the rental properties. So we do short-term rental properties, like I said. So people that want to come and stay in Cincinnati, I would highly recommend taking a look at one of our properties there. We do a 5-star experience for people. So they're a little on the higher side of pricing. Our lowest one starts at $150 a night, and they go up to about $450 a night. But they're luxury homes that we rent out here in the east side of Cincinnati.
Very good. And that's DerekTye, DerekTye.com.
Correct.
Well, Derek, thank you so much. This has been just a really exciting interview. I've learned a lot. I've taken a lot of notes, and wish I could have taken more, but I'll come back and listen. Just an amazing story you've got, and I'm so thrilled with how the Lord's been blessing you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for the opportunity to be part of your listening audience. I listen to your show as well, so it's fun to be on the other side.
Yes. Well, everyone, just in wrapping up, just as a quick reminder that if you do like this podcast, please subscribe to it, like it on Apple or YouTube. And if you want to learn more about growing your business, check us out at getsellerscallingyou.com. Just a lot of great free resources, interviews. Most of the stuff that I teach on there is focused on geographic farming and getting more sales from your personal contacts, past clients, and sphere of influence. So y'all have a very blessed day, and thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe to it so you never miss another episode, and please like our Get Sellers Calling You Facebook page. Also, if you want to increase sales from past clients and sphere of influence, dominate a geographic farm, or convert home valuation leads, check out our Agent Dominator program. We create custom content that differentiates you from other realtors, then use it to keep you top of mind with your prospects with postcards, targeted Facebook ads, email campaigns, video interviews, and more. And the best part is we guarantee your sales or give all your money back. Learn more at getsellerscallingyou.com and select Agent Dominator in the menu. Thanks for listening to the Get Sellers Calling You podcast. Have a great day.